But don't you think that is sheer international gangsterism to try to force your monetary system down the throat of somebody else? So like you just said, China produces um, almost for the whole world. It's the factory for the whole world. Africa is the factory for China. China is the factory for the whole world. So now, if you cut the middleman out, which is the United States and the dollar, she doesn't get a percentage of the international transactions, and at the same time, she cannot manipulate the currency rates to cause inflation or cause a spike in food or a drop in this, which ultimately cause uprisings in other countries or the overthrow of government. So don't you think this has a lot of international gangsterism to it?
Oh, I'm totally. I mean, U.S. has for decades since 1970s. They because the U.S. dollar has the status of world reserve currency, they can just print however they want. They know the world will take it. They can export inflation to the rest of the world. And this is why U.S. can enjoy the living standard it has, even though it has been hollowing out its own manufacturing base in United States, and
Mm-hmm.
and instead it breeds these financial elite who don't really produce anything at the end of the day. This would have gone on a lot longer if the US had been smart about it and not throwing sanction around all over. So they're sanctioning on Russia after Ukraine war. That's really the trigger for the latest progression of de-dollarization. And suddenly, Russia find itself locked out the international financial system. It got taken off the SWIFT, and they look at it. Okay, well, we have a lot of resources. We have a lot of oil, a lot of food that people worlds want. We have China to our south that needs these goods. Um, you know, we can just transact using Chinese currency, and then we got around this whole dollar issue. And with Iran's admission into BRICS, you have another member who have a very strong incentive to push for de-dollarization because Iran is has been sanctioned even longer than Russia
Mm-hmm.
has been. And again, Iran is a major oil producer, oil and gas. So Iran just ironed out a deal with China, where China is going to come in and build them a 2 brand new modern airport, and you will be paid with Iranian crude oil. The U.S. dollar not needed. Without the sanction, they might have just go ahead and pay with the dollar because that's the easiest way forward. But now U.S. had intentionally put in obstacles for those nations to participate in the dollar market. So okay, so now all of the BRICS are calling for de-dollarization from Brazil to South Africa. So we're gonna see this ball rolling, and it's good. This is why a lot of people are producing copium in the U.S. press right now because they understand this is a
Loves
big
that
deal. They
copium.
understand yeah, they understand BRICS is a big deal, but now they're saying they're trying to put a brave face and say, "Oh, the BRICS club is for losers. They're irrelevant. If they're irrelevant, you wouldn't be even talking about them." And go ahead.
uh, I'm I'm sorry. It was something that you said triggered something in me. Now, when we go back to the sanctions on Russia, it was America's plan to keep China and Russia apart. In the leadership of Russia, I believe that some of them still wanted to believe that they were going to eventually integrate into the Western system. But when the United States doubled down and put the gas on trying to um, break Russia, I think they came to a unwanted realization that Russia's future is with Eurasia because the majority of Russia is in Asia, not in Europe, but is in Asia. And when you look at the things, the policies think about this unintended consequences. These sanctions cause the world to see the hidden hand behind all of these arrogant policies. And then you push Russia into the arms of China. And then Russia connects the mirror system with the Union Pay system. Eurasia is about to connect. The Eurasian Economic Union is about to connect to the union pay system. Um, the Iranian system, independent pay system, is now operable with the union pay system, and the West Asian Economic Union is thinking about connecting to the union pay system. I might add, for those of you who don't know, that the union pay system is a Chinese um, payment system, and you have Latin American and African nations now connecting to the union pay system. So these arrogant policies have now pushed the world towards China and integrating economically and politically with the Chinese instead of with American and Europe. And what what do you think was in their mind, and what do you think is still in their mind to continue to double and triple down on failed policies?
Well, it's American hubris, right? I mean, it's American exceptionalism. This kind of thinking led them to think they can win against Russia. They're still pushing for war against Russia, until victory. Like, what does that mean? What does victory against Russia even look like? They think they can. There will be like Napoleon marching onto Moscow. I mean, this is delusional. I mean, I think finally some reality finally seeping in. If you notice, there's a big change in the atmosphere in the press lately about the Ukraine war, and now more and more people are coming to realize, okay, Russia is not going to be defeated. Ukraine war actually is not going well for the West. But that has not translated into any concrete policy action yet. There's nobody in the West and finally say, okay, maybe we do need China to come in as a peace broker to broker a peace deal and stop freeze the conflict. Because that hubris, the arrogance is deep, very, very deep, man. They have to accept that for them to accept that U.S. is just another country among the community of nations. It's a hard pill to swallow. It's for USA number one. That has been ingrained into everyone from a young age. They can't outgrow it, unfortunately.
Well, well, what do you see? They're going after the Brazil. They believe that in the BRICS, Brazil and South Africa, they look at them as two weak links. Maybe if we don't offer South Africa this money from the IMF, then maybe we can make them capitulate and throw a monkey wrench into China and the BRICS plan. And now they're openly talking about trying to balkanize Brazil. I'm serious. This is something that is talked about openly now, of trying to balkanize Brazil because Brazil refuses to back the West and is making its way with China and the BRICS. Um, there's an old saying: when you're in a ditch, stop digging. Why won't they stop digging? They're in the ditch. They're alienating people, and like the congressman said, he let the cat out of the bag when he said this. He said, China is in 140 countries with the Belt and Road Initiative. They see that as the end all be all, because with that it's an alternative to the Western dominated SWIFT system. With that, there's an alternative for lending for and borrowing, and not with these parasitic terms that the West put on these nations, these crippling terms and agreements that if I loan you this, first of all, they put them in poverty. Then they say that we'll give you a loan to do this, and when you get the loan, they dictate that you can't use the loan to get the people out of poverty. You must use it to invest back into the Western economies. I mean, what do these people see? What's going on, or are they in bizarro world?
They're definitely in the bizarro world. They live in their own bubble, right? Like all they get, their feedback they're getting is from their own think tanks that they have themselves have funded. It's like they produce so much propaganda they start to believe in it. That's always a worst mistake. Never believe in your own propaganda. They're losing a sense of reality, and when confronted with reality, they got hostile. I think Xi Jinping is concluding remark at the BRICS summit. He said it very well. He said, we need to promote development and prosperity for all. Many emerging markets and developing countries have come to what they are today after shaking off the yoke of colonialism. With perseverance, hard work, and huge sacrifice, we succeeded in gaining independence and have been exploring development paths suited to our national conditions. Everything we do is to deliver better lives to our people. But some country, obsessed with maintaining its hegemony, has gone out of its way to cripple the developing countries and emerging markets. And whoever is developing fast became the target of containment. Whoever is catching up became its target of obstruction. But this is futile, and I have said more than once that blowing out one's lamp will not bring light to oneself. Uh, Very, very well said. And we all know what some countries Xi Jinping is referring to without naming names. But the problem is the U.S. elite at the point they refuse to accept the reality, so they're fighting it. They're still fighting tooth and nail to preserve their own hegemony, which is slipping out of their fingers.
Oh, it is absolutely astonishing that grown men and women running, they're supposed to be over the most powerful government on the planet, seem like they can't add 1 + 1 to come up with 2. Every time they add something up, it's 45. 1 + 1 is 45 today. 1 + 1 is 35 today. They make it fit their narrow thinking, their narrow mind, and instead of preserving hegemony, they are now alienating the entire globe, and they see China as a threat, like Putin's shirt says in the comment section about he's making fun about what they say about China's debt trap, right? He's making fun because the West loves to use they're in Africa and they're doing this in Latin America, the debt trap, and this, and they don't sit back and look at the path that they blazed to become economic and political powers. They don't look, and they minimize the importance of the lives that were lost for them to become powers, but then they project on China and on Iran and on other nations. Like, as you were talking, I thought about something when you were talking about anybody that rises up to challenge the United States, and I thought about in the 80s how Japan was a manufacturing powerhouse, right? In Japan, the economy was on par to challenge the United States, but because the United States had control over certain levels of Japan, they stymied and then imploded the Japanese economy because they saw it as a threat. I believe the reason that they are lashing out at China too is because they don't have those same levers to stop China's rise or China's emergence as a global economic, political, and military power, and to see a non-white, non-Western nation on par with the West, that's blasphemous in the eyes of the think tanks and those people who are, I would say, indoctrinated with imperial hubris. What do you say about that?
I remember that. I came to United States in 1990. This was at the height of kind of the Japan scare in United States. They were like they were destroying the Toyotas with sledgehammers on TV, and then they have the movie Rising Sun. That's like those Japanese are coming here, buying up everything, taking our women, and it's but Japan, because it's not an independent nation, it's militarily occupied by United States since World War II. So you cannot say no to United States, even though the Tokyo governor wrote a book called "Japan Can Say No," but no, actually they can't. They can't say no when U.S. have the boots on the ground. So in 1985, United States imposed what's called the Plaza Accord on Japan. That actually caused the deflate, the pop of the Japan bubble. That directly led to the crippling of the Japanese economy, led to the lost decades afterwards. So this is, but right now, U.S. is trying to do the same thing to China. This is why the U.S. sanction on on high-tech sectors, on the sales of advanced semiconductors to China. But China and Russia, they're like Lavrov said, China and Russia are true sovereign nations. We are not beholden to United States. And this is why US find it very upsetting, because now there's two countries that can act according to their own national interests rather than to be a puppy dog of the United States. So they have to do whatever they can to undermine China and Russia. And in doing so, they're just pushing China and Russia closer and closer together. As you mentioned, Russia in the beginning, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they very much wanted to join the West. One of the reasons Soviet Union collapsed is because the Soviet elite back then, they wanted to join the Western elite. They want to be the ones that also like outright owning properties and go on vacation in Europe and own mega yachts, sail the world. And they got all of that. But what they didn't get is respect. Immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the West had pushed the NATO forward. Even in 2000, Putin was saying, we can join NATO. Russia, we'd like to join NATO. 2000. This was 2000, and of course, America laughed at them. So like, no, of course not. The whole reason for NATO's existence is to contain Russia. So now they have forced Russia to turn away from its Western orientation, because Russia has always had kind of this dual identity, with its one foot in Europe, one foot in Asia. But since Peter the Great, Russia has been looking west, to be part of the West. And what United States and its allies, its vassal states in Europe is doing, is that they slap Russia in the face and said no. And now what United States foreign policy has created is this nightmare that envisioned by Brzezinski, and is when Russia, China, Iran join together to form what he sees anti-American alliance. Except now it's more than Russia, China, and Iran. With the BRICS, you have countries in Latin America, you have Brazil, you have countries in Africa, South Africa, and now we have you have oil producers, Saudi, Iran. You have Ethiopia, a big African country, and Egypt, the biggest Arab nation. And now, if you look at the percentage of GDP at the power purchasing parity level, the BRICS is already larger than G7. And with these additional new members that come January 2024, it's going to be even bigger. And BRICS already produce the world's majority of it already contains the world's largest oil producers outside United States, and all the nations that produce food, energy, and manufacturing center. The BRICS doesn't need the West. Well, people in the West have this delusional thinking that they need us to consume. They need us to consume their goods. No, they don't. They can produce goods for themselves. I mean, there are plenty of people in the global South and need television, need laptops, need cell phones. Why do they need you sitting in Paris and Washington to consume for them? No, thank you.
I did a show 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago when I finally got on YouTube. It was called We're Number One, No More. And it was about a 45, 50-minute show, and I replayed it this week. And it's about the economic paradigm and political shift that was underway. And a lot of people don't know that according to the metrics, China actually surpassed the United States in 2015 in purchasing power parity. A lot of people don't know that. Because the Chinese are humble, and they allowed America to be drunk on whatever they want to be drunk on, and they kept their heads low and kept grinding towards where they are today. And so in that video that I did, there is an article that I referenced, and this article is referenced from October the 15th, 2020, and the name of the article it is from the National Interest. one of those magazines, the nationalinterest.org. And it was October 15th, 2020. And the title of it is called China is Now the World's Largest Economy. We shouldn't be shocked. Now, before I talked about that article, I referenced CBS and I think NBC actual newscast from 2015 talking about China had surpassed the United States. And so I flipped it forward to 2020 at the time. And I want you to listen to the first paragraph of this. And this is what has the U.S. panties in a crawl right now. Okay. It says China is now the largest economy. We shouldn't be shocked. China has now displaced the U.S. to become the largest economy in the world, measured by the more refined yardstick that both the IMF and the CIA now judge to be the single best metric for comparing national economies. The IMF report shows that China's economy is 1/6 larger than America's at $24.2 trillion versus the United States $20.8 trillion. Why can't we admit reality? What does this mean? This is what they were talking about in the national interest in 2020. And in the article, as it goes on and it says, despite this unambiguous statement from the two most authoritative sources, most of the mainstream press, with the exception of The Economist, continue reporting the U.S. economy is number one. So what's going on? See, they were even perplexed because all the metrics that are used to measure the strength of an economy, the growth of an economy, the power of the economy, all had shifted. And I'm talking about far shifted in China's corner than in the U.S. corner. In that same year, that same month that this article came out, we were in the midst of the pandemic. And you can pull up the article, it's on RT, and they were talking about the United States economy was expected to lose 16 point some trillion dollars a year. So if your economy is a 20.2 billion and you lost 16 point some trillion, how can you rationalize that your economy is bigger than China's economy, which is 24.2 at the time trillion dollars? Make this make sense to me, Carl.
Okay, so now there are two ways of accounting for economy. One is power purchase parity, which is based on how much the money can buy you in that particular country. By that metric, China have surpassed United States a long time ago. And the other one is in the nominal dollar terms, which is priced in US dollars. But we all know that that game is rigged. I mean, like the dollar goes up 5%, against RMB, and then does that mean that somehow the Chinese economy shrunk by 5%? No, like people in China barely felt the impact unless they're paying for American goods. So this is this is why the real economists have always look at both. You have to look at nominal dollar terms and the PPP. Because the nominal dollar term GDP at one point it did reflect something. You reflected how much the world desire your goods versus because sometimes even though your money goes further in your own country, but because your export is not so desired, so the price lower in the dollar terms. But today, I mean, China is is the factory of the world. They already make everything, and so all these kind of the dollar term, because we have the Fed that's manipulating the rates, that. But whatever they do, they're not making. Just by their decree at the Federal Reserve, it's not going to make the Chinese economy shrink, right? Because that's not happening. So this allowed people, the Western elite, feel better about themselves. They can still look at the chart like, we're still ahead of China. There's nothing to worry about. I actually like the Peter Zeihan school of geopolitics. They keep on saying, oh, don't worry, China have all these headwinds. They have a demographic collapse. China is going to collapse on its own. We don't need to worry about them. I actually like that like, I like it when they just keep their head in the sand and pretend nothing is going to happen, and then just let China quietly take over and raise ahead. But right now we have instead we have politicians who are trying to make hay. So they say, oh, China is threatening our way of life. It's how it's because of Chinese manufacturing that United States can maintain the standard of living they have right now, because otherwise everything will be hell expensive. And we can see that from the recent sanctions on Russia. Everything, all the energy price went up. Everything went up. When they sanctioned China, suddenly all the Chinese manufactured computer goods, electronics also went up. And this is all the doing of the United States government. They don't care because for them the inflation doesn't hurt the billionaires too much. It's the average people who have to spend their hard-earned incomes to purchase necessary goods every day that's getting hurting. For the billionaire, it's just a number. They have plenty of money in the bank, but this is why they're so out of touch with the average Americans, the average reality of the country. And this is something has to change, man. Something has to change in the United States. either we change them, either they need to change, or I think the American people need to change them. need to throw them out of the office, because I just don't see this keep going. You can fool people, some of the time. You can't fool people all of them at all the time, man. I mean, like, this is getting really ridiculous. I'm actually coming to United States in a month, so I will bear witness to the shit show once again.
Everybody, please like, subscribe, and comment.